Okay, I'm going to call this The Day of the Lord, Part 2B. The reason is because I listened to part of Part 2 with a dear friend of mine, and I heard so many mistakes I couldn't believe it. First, I got Douglas Voigt's name wrong. Let me make sure. That's the author, Douglas Vogt. So I called him John Vogt. Vogt is how you said, V-O-G-T. So I screwed up on that. The other thing is I didn't even know the number of the days of the year. It's 365 and a quarter. And I said 364 and a quarter. I was only off one digit, but I kept repeating it. What's my excuse? Well, I didn't sleep. I slept that night before, but the two previous nights I didn't get any sleep. And my excuse is that the United States Air Force's most powerful weapon is interfering with my sleep. In 1974, the United States Air Force said its most powerful weapon was 5G. You got that? That's what their most powerful weapon was in 1974, and they're using it on you and me. Now, it's just an incredible weapon system. I mean, it has so much capacity. It's all classified, mind you. But what we do know is this. It interferes with the body's natural secretion of melatonin, interfering with your sleep. We're also living in the age of turbo cancers, which means cancers are just taking off really quickly and rapidly, growing quickly. But that's a result of the you-know-what that they don't want us talking about. However, melatonin interferes in the metabolism that helps that cancers grow by. It interferes with something to do with the sugar metabolism for cancers. I've just discovered this, and so I've been meaning to get the hell out of society anyway. I wanted to get out of here before they deployed 5G, but I haven't been able to do that. So what I am doing is getting ready to leave and go to where there's no 5G. Of course, I have a 5G detector. That's my cell phone. If it says there's 5G, there's 5G, and there's a problem. And they're setting up those antennas everywhere, especially the schools. Back when Trump was president, they had teams going into the schools at night, even though the schools were closed. They didn't want people seeing what they were doing. They were installing 5G Wi-Fi in the schools, which is really bad for developing children. It's really a bad idea. So there's also a psychotronic component to the 5G. There's so much they can do with it. It's not funny. They can interfere with your use of with your oxygenization, with that respiration with your breathing. And that's why so many people died in Wuhan, because they deployed 5G there first. And the people were dying in front of us from COVID. No, they were dying from 5G. I made a lot of mistakes in that video. I just want to let you know I'm aware, and I was pretty much appalled when I heard the mistakes I made. There were so many. As you know, I don't edit, so I stay authentic, and I'm also lazy. And I also fly by the seat of my pants. I get a flow of consciousness going, and I don't want to edit and cut it up. I want to spend the time to do that, and I want to be authentic. So when I make a mistake, when I misspeak, I want you to know I'm just a human being. So, I screwed up on a couple of major things. I said a lot of things that were not said in an accurate fashion. In order for me to get the sharpness that I once had, I have to exercise, which means I have to be willing to make mistakes. So I'm just going to keep talking and keep making videos. I'm going to leave that stuff up. Now, I know it's not a good reflection upon me. Makes me look pretty dull, pretty ignorant. It's not a good reflection. So I beg your indulgence. This is part 2B, so I could correct myself publicly for you. I'm going to start reading the apocryphal books regularly because I realize you and I have been deprived of those. And we're going to get into them and we're going to talk about those critically. I just wish I could find my little red book, the King James Version. I thought I had it up in my magazine rack. My buddy's wife didn't like this rack. Didn't fit into their rig, which is the same size as mine. Middle entry, same woods, maple cabins, but it's a different floor plan. And besides that, they've really altered it. They've got workstations in there for each of them. I mean, they've got a lot in there. I've never been inside. I guess it's pretty crammed up and pretty cramped. Anyway, I really like this little. It's not so little and it's not so light. It's one of the things I like about it is it's anchored to the floor pretty well, and it fits right between my chair and the dog's kennel. So it's a good use of space, and it gives me a way to organize the books that I'm reading. Now, in the past, when I was in internship, and much of my life, I had several books going at one time. On average, 14 books at one time I was reading. And I kept cycling through them, and I get a break from a book by taking another book. And I read a lot of magazines and periodicals. I read as much as I could. So I'm pretty well read. The big problem is that the Strokes, which were, let's see, well, they weren't quite 20 years ago, really took me out. It took a long time to recover, and I recovered by sitting on my butt and reading the Bible every day for several hours. Plus, I also exercised vehemently. I get up, take my big boy out, and we go run for 1.5 miles, 2 miles every morning. And it was to the point where I was having to space it out. Then I had to go every other morning, then every third morning, because I get injuries. And the dog was a bit disappointed in that, because if I invited him to run and then I tried to serve him some food, he'd look at me and it's like, no, buddy, we're going to go for a run. The food's going to be here when I want it. I want that run. Let's go. So we would go out and we would run together. The other thing that I did is I was pumping iron 2 to 3 times a week with a personal trainer. And the other thing I was doing is I was out dancing about 5 nights a week. I did that to compensate for the strokes because the dancing helped me with my balance. And my balance is not so good now because the time I got COVID was when I was in a dance lesson. And the people that go there, almost all of them are libtards and they take the jab and they believe in that stuff. And so their shedding of whatever the hell it is they got, whatever particulates they've managed to sneak into their bodies, that stuff gets on the rest of us. And that's part of the problem. And I know that Greg, what's your last name? He was on 2 channels, 2 regular stations before he started USA Watchdog. Greg's not doing too well. He was sick, and then he's only done 1 video in the last 3 or 4 months. He used to do one every week, at least. I like Greg a lot. I'd love to go across the country and visit him. He sat with some famous people and I really admire him. He's got a pretty doggone good interview style. But Greg he's told us that we need treatment. He says, you need treatment. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not sick. I don't need treatment. Well, Greg is right, because even though we're not sick and even though we're feeling good, the fact is that these other people are infecting us on a regular basis. So I don't even like being around them. I don't go dancing because it's a contact sport. And I don't want to touch their skin. I don't want to be too much around them. For one, if I start talking to them, they're going to get upset. And you cannot do that. You cannot disturb somebody else's reality. That's not acceptable anymore. And they will set you up for all kinds of things, thinking they're totally justified. I keep forgetting and I take some chances. And I am asserting myself a bit more these days. So I have learned my lesson. I will assert from the distance and I'll stay the fuck away from these stupid assholes. You have to. It's the most important way you can defend yourself is to avoid trouble and to walk away. Slip away. If they're not respectful, and I know they all say respect is earned, fuck you, you asshole, abusing son of a bitch. Respect is not earned. Respect is lost. Credibility is lost. Respect is commanded. If you don't give it, I'm gone. We don't have to be in the same room or the same city together. If you're not going to respect, then I know you can't possibly love me. And if you're going to try to control me or manipulate me, well, that's abuse. And of course, you may think it's okay, especially if you're a woman, to do that because you're used to being entitled and doing stuff that the men can't do. We don't do that stuff to each other, and we don't do it to you. But you think you're entitled. And as we get to the end of this Earth age, major problem we have is that it's all coming apart. It's just what happens at the end of an Earth age. It always goes like this, and it goes deceptive, and truth becomes more and more distant. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm suspecting that at the end of an Earth age, women become they go crazy and they act out and do stuff lower and worse than any man could do. So as women are sexually liberated and otherwise liberated, they take advantage of the men. So our only good defense is to just walk away, slip away, to avoid the conflict, avoid the problems. At the end of an Earth age, and Sri Singh Sahib, Yogi Bhajan, told us that it was characterized by increasing insanity, which we definitely have, and I'm sure it's obvious, isn't it? And the other one may not be so obvious because we entitle and enable these women. Now, I think that the women who know me and tune into the videos are pretty upset with me, but it's like, I don't give, well, I do care actually, but I just don't give a shit. If you're not going to knuckle under and carry your own weight and be responsible, take responsibility, then, I don't want to be around you. But the real problem is that women become, in the words of Sri Singh Sahib, merciless. I also think that the natives become restless and they do all kinds of weird shit. And that's what they're heading us for. Because when we do the weird stuff and hurt each other and kill each other, we don't survive the transition into the next Earth age. And the people that run this planet, the keepers, they want to dominate. And they want their children to dominate. So they are going to do their best to get rid of us, seriously, and help us get rid of each other. That's what they like the most, is to manipulate one poor son of a bitch to kill the other poor son of a bitch. They love brother wars. So if you're a woman and you want to survive into this next Earth age, do you think it's wise to disrespect men? Do you think it's wise to rebel and challenge and take chances? I mean, you got a man and you want security. You have a man and you want to be defended. You have a man and you want him to take the brunt and to protect you. You have a man and you want him to do certain tasks that you don't like, that are unpleasant or just too tough for you, or extremely dangerous or horrible work circumstances. A man will tolerate that. A woman really won't. Oh, I'm not speaking universally. There's always some oddball who probably does more than the men or better than the men too. It's definitely true. But we have problems now because the men have become womanized. The men have become feminized to the point where they're an embarrassment and the females are masculine in comparison to the males. Part of that's chemistry. Part of that is these silent weapons they're using on us. Another part of that is the brainwashing, the culture. And sadly, the women think that they're always going to be able to get a man and there's always going to be a man for them. And it's a big lie. And I know, I watch on Facebook, a woman puts a picture up of herself and she wants attention and she wants to be adored and loved and put on a freaking pedestal. And we'll do that, but it's a mistake. Because they think too highly of themselves and they think they're worth more than they are worth. They rate themselves higher than they ought to be rated. They need to know that once you get married, you better lock in. Why? Because nobody else is going to want you. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sure, you can seduce and manipulate and do all that, and there's a certain amount of stuff you can do. But if you say you want the guy to marry you and you want him to support you, most of the guys are going to they're not going to give you the time of day because they have a bunch of women lined up, lots of women on the side. A man who is high value doesn't bother looking even. The women are there. So you women, you know you have to compete for him. It's too bad you didn't think a little bit more highly of the men who were interested in you earlier on and you didn't pair off and form a bond that would last into old age. It's so much more healthy for you. It's not funny. You know, my family of origin was rough on me. My sister and my mother were hell on wheels. They were very difficult. But the nice thing about it was they prepared me for what it's like today. It's pretty bad. A woman will assume the role or pretend all kinds of stuff. The last woman I was interested in pretended she would help me in everything. She'd be a good helpmate. And I was digging it. I'm thinking, great, get some cash flowing in. I got a retirement. She doesn't have much of support that I can see, that I can tell. And I don't know her that well. And I haven't screened my women very well. Let's face it, I haven't vetted them adequately. So who knows what she does on the side to make a living. But when we parted ways, she made sure to cut to the core. She made sure to be as destructive as she could be. Well, she wanted to really trash the relationship for one, and she wanted to trash me. The real problem is she's got herself painted in a corner now because she will not take any responsibility. She doesn't understand. You disrespected me. Yes, I hung up on you. Only time I ever did. You used to claim I did it all the time before when the cell phones would just drop us off. But I did hang up because you're not going to treat me that way. Do I care for you? Yeah, I still care for you. But I also realize we're not compatible. I realize that doesn't mean we couldn't do something together, like be friends as we were, which was pretty nice. And it also doesn't mean that we couldn't be, well, the problem is we can't be business partners because you knocked my faith. You knocked my God. You knocked Yahweh. And you knocked the Bible. And if you're going to manage me and my business and take some money, it's coming off Bible sales. And there's other sales that could come off as well. I would let you go with that and run that and manage the business, and I'd let you have a fair, healthy share. And whatever I didn't give to you, I'd probably be spending on you anyway. Some women are stupid. They're foolish. They tear down their own houses with their own hands. And they think they're going to do better. No, you're probably not. Yeah, I know that happens. Some women do better. And I also know there's a lot of women that get screwed over in their divorces and separation. And the other thing I know is if a woman complains about her previous husband and she complains about being a victim, she's going to turn just like that on you, on me. So you have to be wary of it. And if she's been in an abusive relationship, I don't want much to do with her. Why? Because she will definitely abuse me at some point. Or she will actually manipulate the dynamics so that it becomes abusive, so she can recreate the circle of abuse. I think it was Leonora. I want to say Hensley, but I think that's the woman who lives over in Mummy Mountain in Phoenix that was so famous a while back. We're going to be covering the apocryphal books because you don't get a chance to read those, and there's so much in there. And there are some things in there that just seem to be contradictory and don't make much sense. We're going to be going through those. And so you're going to be getting that from me. Pray to God I can find my little red book with the King James version of the Apocrypha. And I don't want to go spending $12 on the book. But more importantly than that, that book was underlined in red ink, blue ink, dog-eared, highlighted in mostly yellow. It's been studied small print, notes written in the margins in black ink and red ink. Yeah, that's... What's my shoe doing out there in the middle of the floor? I wonder how it got there. Lorraine, did you get my shoe again? Did you come here? Does that you put my shoe on the floor? Are you trying to tell me something? You're such a sweet girl. Yes. She wants to go for a walk. It's getting dark earlier. And she's right. We should be out walking. She may be, in fact, be looking out for me going, hey, bud, you've been sitting on your ass too much. Let's get you moving. Let's get the blood flowing. Let's get your heart working. It's nice to have a puppy dog, but a super dog? Little difficult. Little on the high-strung side, but actually she's quite submissive and quite demure. Yes, such a sweet girl. Oh yes, come on. Yeah, I would hate to get hit in the chest with those two paws. Oh, at full speed. Yeah, I would hate that. Lorraine, such a good girl. Oh, talk about core strength. She's got core strength. Oh, jeez. She forcefully makes sure she's going to get pet. It's okay, and now she's going to give me a hug. You're a good girl. And she looks right at me so intent, so lovingly. Yeah, such a pretty girl, too. Got to get a good picture of her for her new ID. She's going to be a trained service dog. Full rights, full privileges, probably more rights than you or I have. May Yahweh bless. I hope I've made myself clear. I'm aware of some of my mistakes. If you want to call me out on them, if you want to educate me, that's okay. You can do it in the comments publicly if you like, or you can email me or contact me through social media if it's something that you know is pretty sensitive, or if it's something you want to discuss. That's okay. That's good. Where two or more are gathered in my name, there is the Holy Spirit, the Comforter. I like those times. Yahweh bless.